Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel where today we are talking about all the books that I read in the month of June, and I did do pretty well this month, so we are just gonna jump right in. The very first thing that I read is Network Effect by Martha Wells, the fifth book in the Murderbot Diaries. And in this book, we're following our main character of Murderbot, who is delightful, and they have been kidnapped and another person needs their assistance, and so they are trying to help. Yes, I know that's super vague. Also, I don't really want to spoil anything. So, when I read this, I did generally like it, but I will say I read this at the very beginning of the month, and I honestly don't remember a ton from this book, which is really sad. However, let's start with the good. Murderbot and the spaceship art, whom we have met before, are in this, and they are an utter delight to read. I love them so much. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but occasionally you'll run into people who are like, we're totally friends, but we also very clearly don't know how to be friends. And so they just bicker all the time. That's Murderbot and art, and I loved them. It was so good. I did think that this was a really nice setup to another book, so I will be excited to see another book coming out. But honestly, there was a lot more hard science in this than I am accustomed to with these books, so it was a little bit more difficult for me to follow. I also didn't remember a ton of the characters in the beginning, which made it, again, very difficult to follow. And there was a lot less action in this and a lot more mystery. Now that's understandable because this is the first full-length novel. All the other books are novellas. But I liked the action, that was the part, that was what really drew me to this. So I was a little bit sad that there wasn't more action. Overall, it was still really good, but it did feel like it was missing something. And I have settled on giving it 4.25 stars. And then after that, I read A Red Rose Chain by Seanan McGuire, the 9th book in the October Days series. The October Days series is an adult urban fantasy series where we're following our main character of Toby Day, who is a half-human, half-fae knight who solves weird problems. And in this particular book, the problem that she is solving is that she is sent on a diplomatic mission to a neighboring kingdom to prevent a war. Now, Toby is not a diplomat, so this goes badly almost immediately. So I have already done a full-length review for this book. I will try to link it somewhere so that you can find it, probably up above or down below. But I liked this book a lot. There is a beautiful coming out story in this for a trans character that I thought was really nicely handled, even with our main character. The trans character basically was like, aren't you going to say anything? And Toby ends up saying, I'm sorry you felt like you couldn't tell me sooner. And I love that because how she says it, it really does feel like she's taking responsibility for the fact that she didn't actively encourage a safe space where this person could feel like this was something they could share. So I really, really appreciated that. There was so much backstory on a couple of characters that I absolutely adored. I loved the backstory. The antagonists in this are like chef's kiss. They are so good. I hate them so much. So really good. But honestly, this is a storyline that I don't love. It's one of those where Toby is flailing around because she just doesn't know what she's supposed to be doing. And that's not my favorite. So in the end, I ended up giving this 4.5 stars. And then later on in the month, I read Once Broken Faith by Seanan McGuire, the 10th book in the October Days series. And in this book, well, there's a conclave that's been called of all the monarchs to discuss everything that went down on that diplomatic mission that Toby messed up. And then of course there is a murder that happens and Toby has to solve it. This was awesome. I really, really liked it. So there were only a couple quibbles that I had. And the first one was just that the villain was a little bit mustache twirling and like kind of predictable, but it was still at least a little bit turned on its side. So I was just like, okay, fine. And it really was that one was small. And then the other small thing was just that there are a lot of near deaths. And I was just kind of like, this is losing its impact, and I don't really love this. But, you know, I really liked the information we got on all the neighboring kingdoms from dealing with these monarchs. And overall, it was, I really loved this story. It was just so good. And I ended up giving this 5 stars. Afterwards, I read A Thousand Pieces of You by Claudia Gray, the first book in the Firebird trilogy. Now, this is interesting. This is an alternate dimension story. Basically, our main character of Marguerite is the daughter of 2 amazing physicists who have created the Firebird, which is essentially a piece of technology that allows your consciousness to travel to an alternate dimension and inhabit your body in that dimension. And then Marguerite's dad is killed, and the person who did it jumps into a different dimension using the Firebird, and so Marguerite follows after. And obviously she's trying to track him down. In the end, I really liked this book. So there were some issues. So for example, it is not hard science. There are no hard science explanations. And to be fair, there's some hand waving of those explanations. So like Marguerite is like 18 and she is an art person. And like, occasionally you'd be like, how does it work? She's like, I don't really know. I'm just an art person. I was like, that doesn't fly. I've known too many people who are science people and art people. So I don't accept that. But then the other main explanation used was, oh my gosh, my parents are all science all the time. Could we please just talk about something else? And I'm kind of like, okay, that sounds so like frustrated teenager that I totally believe that would happen. Like I was okay with that one. Additionally, in this book, there is a very strong romance, which, like, okay, fine. I accept. I didn't love. One of the interesting ideas that I really liked is that there is this theory that they have that your consciousness, like, resonates with certain other people. And so you will end up finding them more often across the different dimensions. Now, I really liked this because they weren't like, you're always going to end up together, right? It's just more like, you're going to end up gravitating towards certain people more often than can be explained by just randomness. And so I was like, okay, cool. I didn't like that they use that to explain why certain couples happen to get together so frequently. I'm like, that's too close to soulmates, and I don't like soulmates. So I didn't love that. I really like that they did ask some very important ethical questions. Now Claudia Gray did it in a very heavy-handed way, but I like that it was there. And one of them was, do I have the right to make choices for somebody else? Basically, Marguerite went into a different person's body. It is Marguerite's alternate Marguerite's body, so it's kind of technically hers, but alternate Marguerite is a separate person from our Marguerite. And so it really becomes like, I am making choices for her. Do I have that right? Which I think is a very interesting question. I also really liked the romance got so complicated, you guys, because like our Marguerite was just like, I like this guy. And then she went to a different dimension and she's like, the same person appears before her, but like in that dimension, like that dimension's person. And she's like, now, do I like this dimension's person, or do I like, is it just like holdover from my dimension? And like, or is it the fact that this body clearly has feelings, or what is going on? And I really like that they asked that question. As complicated as it got, I did like that they asked that question. I did like the writing, and I really liked our main character, Marguerite. So overall, I ended up giving this 4 stars. After that, I read A Hero's Guide to Deadly Dragons by Cressida Cowell. This is the 6th book in the... Oh, it's right here. Sorry. This is the 6th book in the How to Train Your Dragon series. And honestly, I liked this book. We are following our main character... Oh, yeah. We are following our main character of Hiccup Horrendous Haddock III. And his dragon is about to be... what is it called? Banished. Sorry guys. His dragon is about to be banished, so he has to go to the public library and steal a book. It makes sense, promise. And I actually really liked this book. The storyline was very fast paced. It didn't take any unnecessary detours, which some in the past have. I liked all the characters and the character interactions. I really liked the ending and how, like, the consequences that are going to come about because of that ending. And honestly, like, it was nice because I wasn't constantly asking how much more of this do I have to read. So, for those that don't know, my older child is allowed to pick out one book a month that I read, and this was his choice. I don't generally read elementary school books for a reason, but this one has been probably the best in the series. So I am happy about that. After that, I did pick up Grimspace by Ann Aguirre, the first book in the Samantha Jax series. This is an adult science fiction series that follows our main character of Samantha Jax, who is a jumper. She is essentially navigating the ship as they warp from one place to another to get there faster. She is following the beacons and is trying to make sure that obviously they can come out in the correct area. In the beginning of this book, the last ship that she was navigating ended up crashing horrifically, and everybody's trying to figure out what happened. And then a man appears in her cell and says, "I will help break you out if you do something for me." And so the story just goes from there. This book is a hot mess. It is so bad. So let's go through it. The syntax is weird. The syntax of the sentences. It's weird, comprehensible, but weird. It wasn't exactly clear what the central problem was until 20 pages from the end when we were solving that central problem. The ending itself was very rushed, very abrupt. Samantha tends to talk down on herself about how she used to be, and then you're like, and she'll be like, "It was myself a month ago," or whatever. And you're like, that was you at the beginning and you were traumatized. So I don't know what you're talking about. There were insta-close relationships. So basically, like, the people met and we saw some interactions between them, although not very much. And there really wasn't there wasn't relationship building in there. And then at the end, there was like literally, "You're my best friend." It's like, okay, but when did that happen? Like, I didn't see that. And then just like there's occasionally a jarringly bad word choice. And you guys, I liked this. I enjoyed it so much. Like, I ended up giving this like 4 stars because I enjoyed it so much. It is cotton candy. It is insubstantial, but super enjoyable while you're reading it. And so I really liked it in spite of itself. So there you go. Later in the month, I did pick up the second book of this series, Wanderlust, and in this particular one, Samantha Jax has been named ambassador to a planet, and now all she has to do is actually get there, and of course, that's a really difficult thing to do. So, and it just kind of goes from there. And honestly, everything about this book was just better. Everything I just complained about in the first book was better, and I really did enjoy the storyline. I just thought it was nice. I liked it. Again, still not amazing literature here. It's still cotton candy, but I really did enjoy it. And I really honestly can't wait for the next book. After that, I did pick up Magic Burns by Ilona Andrews, the second book in the Kate Daniels series, which is an adult urban fantasy series where we are following our main character of Kate Daniels. She is a mercenary, and she is now also the liaison between the Knights Order and basically everybody else. The shapeshifters have asked for her help in recovering some stolen maps, and the story goes from there. And this is another book where the second book in the series is just so much better than the first. Everything was better. I liked Kate better. The storyline itself was better. The writing was better. There wasn't such gross racism throughout the book. It was just generally a lot better. The only major problem I had is that the ending really was quite abrupt. But other than that, I thought it was fast-paced and a fun and interesting read. And again, I'm very excited to see where the series goes for book number 3. After that, I read Ancillary Justice by Ann Leckie. This is the first book in a series trilogy. I think it's a trilogy, where we are following our main character. This is an adult science fiction series, by the way. And we are following our main character, a Breck, who used to be a spaceship and is now in a human body, and they are out for revenge. And this is actually, excuse me, this is actually a really interesting story. However, it wasn't for me. I really struggled to kind of follow along for a couple of reasons. The first is that they use the gender neutral pronoun of she, which is fine. I actually think that's very interesting. However, occasionally they would switch between the gender neutral she and the gendered she, and I really struggled to follow that. So I didn't like the switching. I could have handled it if it was gendered or just straight non-gendered, but the switching was where I struggled. Some of the names I found to be very similar, so I really didn't know who was who in the beginning, which just made it more difficult to follow. I honestly needed a few explanations a little bit sooner in the story, and I ended up missing a lot of the details. But overall, I liked the overall story, the bigger picture story. I thought it was very cool. And I really do understand why so many people love this book. But honestly, it's just not for me. So even though I ended up giving this 4 stars, I have no intention of continuing this series. And then lastly, I read The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson, the first book in the Mistborn series. Oh, so I have a full review for this that will be coming out next week. And you guys, I ended up rating this 3 stars out of 5. There were just some problems. This is a 650-page book that didn't need to be 650 pages and ended up suffering for how long it was. The pacing was so incredibly slow at the beginning. The ending was so fast. It was like whiplash. And overall, everything was just not that well developed. The world building was not that developed. The characters weren't that developed. The plot was interesting, but it suffered for these pacing issues. And so when I took a step back and really thought about this book, I thought, oh, the world is really interesting. The magic system is really interesting. The characters, I really like some of them. And did I say the plot? I thought the plot was interesting and the world building, all this stuff was super interesting, but not really well developed, or it suffered from how poor the pacing was. And so it was actually a little bit of a struggle to get through this book. I really liked the ending, but in the end, I kind of didn't think the ending made up for all the problems I had with the beginning. And so because of that, I did end up giving this 3 stars out of 5, and I have no intention of continuing this series. So that is it, you guys. Those are all the books that I read in the month of June. If you want to talk to me about any of them, if you've read them, if you haven't, whatever, I ask that you keep it civil, but other than that, let's talk about it. But that's it, you guys. So until next time, have happy reading, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.